I still remember the day I got the email. It didn't feel real at first, like something meant for someone else's life, not mine. The subject line was simple, final selection result. My hands were shaking before I even opened it. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the screen, whispering to myself that I should calm down, that I shouldn't expect too much. But I had worked for this. Late nights, exhausted mornings, skipping outings, saving every little chance I got to build a future outside the walls of this house. A scholarship abroad, fully approved, my ticket out, my chance to finally breathe. When I opened the email, the world stopped. Accepted. For a few seconds, I couldn't even move. Then everything hit at once, relief, joy, disbelief. I laughed out loud, alone in my room, holding the screen like it might disappear if I blinked. I had done it. I was leaving. I was finally going to build my own life. The first people I told were my parents. At first, their reaction wasn't what I expected. My mother smiled. My father nodded slowly, like he was thinking too hard about something. They asked questions about safety, about the country, about the program. It felt normal, concerned, even supportive, but then the questions started changing. Are you sure it's safe there? You're still too young to live alone. What if something happens and we can't reach you? At first, I answered everything patiently. I showed them documents, brochures, even videos of the university. I explained everything again and again, thinking maybe they just needed reassurance. But reassurance slowly turned into resistance. Days passed, and the excitement in me started meeting something colder at home. My father stopped mentioning it entirely. My mother began telling relatives I was confused and still deciding. I overheard her once on a phone call saying, "We're trying to stop him from rushing into something dangerous." Rushing. I had been preparing for years. Then came the guilt. You'll leave us alone. After everything we've done for you, we sacrificed so much, and now you want to go so far away. Those words didn't just ask questions. They wrapped around my chest like ropes. Every time I tried to talk about my plans, the atmosphere in the house thickened. Silence replaced conversation. Cold stares replaced warmth. Still, I didn't believe they would actually stop me. Not my parents, not my family, but I was wrong. The day before my departure preparations, I went to my drawer to double-check my passport. I had placed it in a small folder, carefully kept with my documents. I remember opening it slowly, already thinking about packing lists, flight timings, and what I would eat on the plane. The folder was there, but the passport wasn't. At first, I laughed nervously. I thought maybe I had moved it. I searched again under clothes, inside books, behind the drawer. My heart began to beat louder each time I failed to find it. That's when my mother entered the room. She saw my face and immediately knew, looking for something. She asked calmly. I didn't answer right away, "Where is my passport?" For a moment she hesitated, just a fraction of a second, but I saw it. Then she sighed like I was the one being unreasonable. "You're not going," she said. The words didn't make sense at first. I actually laughed, thinking it was some kind of joke. "What do you mean I'm not going? My flight is scheduled. Everything is ready." My father appeared behind her in the hallway. His expression was firm, almost tired. "We already decided," he said. "It's safer this way. Safer." That word hit harder than anything else. I stepped forward. "You took my passport." No one answered immediately. The silence was the answer. Something inside me cracked, not loudly, not dramatically, but deeply, like a glass splitting under pressure that had been building for years. "I earned that scholarship," I said, my voice shaking. "I worked for this. You can't just, we're your parents," and my mother interrupted. "We know what's best for you." That sentence, "we know what's best for you," felt like a door slamming shut on my entire future. I stood there, frozen, watching them as if they were strangers. Not angry strangers, not even emotional ones. Just calm, certain, as if what they had done was normal. I wanted to shout. I wanted to break something. I wanted them to feel even a fraction of what I was feeling, but I didn't, because all I felt in that moment was disbelief turning slowly into something heavier. Helplessness. My father finally spoke again, softer this time. You'll understand one day. But I already understood. They weren't protecting me, they were controlling me. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet house. Everyone acted like nothing had happened. Like they hadn't just taken my entire future and locked it away. And as I lay there, one thought kept repeating in my mind, growing sharper with every passing second. If they think this is over, they don't know what I'm going to find next. The morning after they took my passport felt wrong, in a way I couldn't explain at first. Everything looked the same walls, same breakfast table, same routine voices moving through the house. But nothing felt real anymore. It was like I had woken up inside a version of my life where something important had been quietly removed, and no one was willing to admit it was gone. I kept telling myself I would get it back. Maybe they just needed time to calm down. Maybe they would return it before my flight. Maybe this was just a lesson in their eyes. I kept building excuses because the truth was too heavy to accept all at once. But as the hours passed, those excuses started collapsing. I went to the place I had last seen it, my drawer, at least 10 times that morning. Each time I opened it slower, like repetition might somehow change reality. It didn't. The folder was still there, neatly placed, almost mockingly organized. But the passport was gone, as if it had never existed. When I finally asked again, my mother didn't even look up from what she was doing. You need to forget about it, she said calmly. Forget about it, like it was a broken pen, like it was a canceled plan. Not a document that represented my entire identity, my future, my escape. I can't forget about it, I said quietly. My flight is in a few days. My father didn't even turn toward me. There is no flight. That was the moment I realized something had shifted permanently in this house. Not just my plans, but my place in it. The days that followed turned into something I can only describe as silent confinement. No locks on the doors, no chains, nothing visible, but every movement felt restricted. Every decision felt watched. Every attempt to bring up the topic again was shut down before it even started. My parents acted normal in front of others. When relatives called, they smiled and laughed. When neighbors visited, they offered tea and polite conversation. But inside the house, there was an invisible wall between us now. I was still their child, but only in the sense that I was expected to obey. I tried to resist quietly at first. I checked every corner of the house when no one was looking. I searched drawers, cupboards, even old storage boxes in the storeroom. I told myself I was being careful, not suspicious. But deep down, I knew I was looking for something bigger than just a passport now. I was looking for truth. One evening, I noticed something I had never paid attention to before. My father had a small wooden cabinet in his study room. It was always locked. Not unusual, he had always been private about his documents, but after what had happened, everything felt suspicious. Especially that cabinet. I remember standing outside the room longer than I should have, just listening. When I finally opened the door, he wasn't there. My hands were shaking as I approached the cabinet. I tried the handle locked, of course. I didn't expect it to open, but something about it made my stomach tighten. It didn't feel like ordinary paperwork was inside. It felt guarded. That night I couldn't sleep. My thoughts kept looping around the same questions. Why take my passport? Why now? Why lie so easily? And why did it feel like they were hiding something bigger than just control? The next morning, my mother acted like nothing had happened. She asked me what I wanted for breakfast, as if the previous days hadn't rewritten everything between us. I barely answered her. I was changing, not loudly, not dramatically, but slowly, internally, like something inside me was reorganizing itself around a new truth. I couldn't trust what I was being told anymore. By the third day, I stopped asking for the passport directly, not because I gave up, but because I realized asking was useless. Instead, I started observing. I watched their routines more carefully. I noticed how my father always went quiet when certain phone calls came in. I noticed how my mother quickly ended conversations when I entered the room. I noticed small things, slips of paper hidden too quickly, drawers closed too fast, conversations that stopped mid-sentence. Something was there, something they didn't want me to see, and the more I noticed, the more I felt something else growing inside me, something sharper than sadness. Suspicion. One evening, while pretending to clean my room, I heard my mother talking in the hallway. Her voice was low, tense. I couldn't hear everything clearly, but one part stood out. Just keep it safe, he must not find out. I froze. Keep what safe, find out what? My heart started beating faster, but I didn't move. I didn't want to alert her. I just stood there, listening to silence return after the call ended. That night, I couldn't stop thinking. It wasn't just about my passport anymore. Something bigger was happening in this house. Something hidden beneath the surface of control and excuses. And for the first time since I got the scholarship email, I wasn't thinking about leaving the country. I was thinking about uncovering whatever they were hiding from me, because one truth had become clear inside that silent prison. They didn't just take my future. They were protecting something from me, and I was going to find out what it was. It started with something so ordinary that I almost ignored it. A thin envelope tucked behind a stack of old files in my father's study. I wasn't even looking for it at first. I was just pretending to clean the room while waiting for him to leave the house. By then, I had learned how to move carefully in my own home, like a guest who wasn't fully welcome. The moment I saw the envelope, something inside me tightened. It wasn't labeled clearly, no obvious name, no bold warning, just a bank logo and a faint crease down the middle, like it had been opened and closed too many times. My hands hesitated before touching it. I told myself I should leave it. I told myself this was crossing a line I couldn't uncross. But then I thought about my passport, about my future sitting somewhere I couldn't reach, about the way they looked at me like I was a problem they had to contain. And I opened it. At first, it didn't make sense. Numbers, transactions, account statements, dates, transfers, withdrawals. Then I saw the total, $86,000. My breath caught so hard it almost hurt. I read it again and again, hoping I had misunderstood, hoping it was a mistake, hoping it belonged to someone else. But my father's name was there, repeated, clear, undeniable, and suddenly everything in my head went quiet. Not calm, just silent in a dangerous way, because this wasn't just money. This was a secret, a big one. I sat on the floor of his study room, the papers shaking slightly in my hands. My mind tried to build explanations faster than I could stop it. Was this savings, a hidden investment, debt, or something worse? Then I saw something else in the documents, a reference to an account I didn't recognize. Another name, another transfer pattern, and a note that made my stomach drop. Education fund allocation withheld. My throat went dry. Education fund, my education. I flipped through the pages faster now, no longer careful. Everything I had been feeling for days, the confusion, the suspicion, the suffocation, was suddenly pulling itself into one sharp point. And then I found it. A document listing allocations, scholarship supplements, funds meant for tuition, money that was supposed to support my studies abroad, but instead of being used for me, it had been moved, redirected, absorbed into something else. $86,000, gone, not missing, not lost, taken. I remember standing up so quickly the chair behind me scraped loudly against the floor. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. So this was it. This was why. This was why my passport disappeared. This was why every conversation turned into guilt and fear. This was why they kept saying I wasn't ready. It wasn't protection. It was control, and worse, it was exposure. If I left, I would find out. If I left, I might ask questions. If I left, I might see what they had done. My hands trembled as I placed the papers back exactly how I found them. My body moved automatically, but my mind was somewhere else entirely. Everything I had believed about my family cracked open in slow motion. I walked out of the room without saying a word. That night, I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I just lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment from the past few days. Every "you're not ready," every "we're protecting you," every forced smile, every locked drawer, every sudden silence when I entered a room. It all made sense now. They weren't afraid for me. They were afraid of me leaving, because leaving meant truth. And truth meant consequences. Around midnight, I heard voices downstairs, my parents, low, tense. I couldn't hear everything, but I caught fragments through the walls. He found something. No, he can't know yet. We need more time. My chest tightened, so they knew. They knew I was close. I lay back down slowly, forcing my breathing to stay steady, even though everything inside me was collapsing into something new. Anger didn't come first. Sadness didn't either. It was clarity. Cold, sharp clarity. They had taken my passport not to protect me, but to control the story I was allowed to live. And now I knew there was a price attached to that control. $86, zeros, €0. A secret big enough to destroy trust. Big enough to ruin everything they had built around lies. I turned onto my side, staring into the darkness, my thoughts no longer scattered. They were forming something focused, something patient, something dangerous. If they thought hiding the truth would keep me obedient, they had already made their first mistake. Because now I wasn't just their son trying to leave. I was someone who knew where the truth was buried. The night I found the $86,000 secret, something inside me changed permanently. Not in a dramatic, explosive way, but in a quiet, irreversible one. Like a door closing inside my mind, and another one opening that no one else could see. I didn't confront them. I didn't scream. I didn't even cry. I just decided I would never be controlled by ignorance again. For the first time, I stopped reacting emotionally and started thinking strategically. If they had built their control on secrecy, then truth was the only thing strong enough to break it. The next morning, I acted normal. I sat at the breakfast table. I answered simple questions. I even nodded when my mother spoke about family unity. Like nothing was broken between us. But inside, I was no longer the same person who had opened that scholarship email weeks ago. I was watching them now. Not as parents, but as people with something to hide. Every movement became data. Every hesitation became evidence. Every locked door became a question waiting to be answered. I started quietly gathering everything. Copies of documents I could access, photos of bank statements when no one was watching, notes about dates, names, and inconsistencies. Small pieces at first. Nothing obvious, nothing risky. just enough to build a picture no one could deny later. At night, I hid everything in places they would never think to search. I learned how to move through my own house like someone preparing to escape a system built to trap them. And slowly, I stopped feeling fear. What replaced it was something calmer, control. One evening, I reached out to someone I had contacted months ago about my scholarship, the program coordinator abroad. I didn't explain everything at once. I couldn't. I only said my documents had been withheld and I needed advice. The response came faster than I expected: concern, urgency, instructions. And one line that stayed with me: if your passport is being withheld, this is not just a family issue. This is a legal issue. Legal. That word hit differently. It meant I wasn't imagining things. It meant I wasn't powerless. It meant this was bigger than me and bigger than their control. The next step was harder. I contacted a legal aid service quietly, using a borrowed moment of privacy outside the house. My voice didn't shake when I explained the situation, not anymore. I had rehearsed the truth too many times in my head. Passport withheld, financial documents discovered, suspicious fund movement, $86,000 involved. The person on the other side didn't interrupt me once. They just listened, and when I finished, they said something simple: "We can help you recover your documents." That was the moment everything started moving. Not loudly, not instantly, but inevitably. 2 days later, my parents started acting differently. They became more alert, more cautious. My father checked his study room more often. My mother asked more questions about where I was going, who I was talking to, why I was on the phone so long. They knew something was shifting. They just didn't know how much, but I did, because for the first time, I wasn't alone in this anymore. Then came the confrontation I had been waiting for, but not the emotional one they expected. It happened in the living room late afternoon. My father called me in with that same controlled tone he always used when he thought he was still in power. "We need to talk," he said. My mother stood behind him, arms crossed, tense but trying to look calm. "I didn't sit down, I already know," I said. The silence that followed was immediate, not confusion. Not denial, just stillness. My father's expression changed slightly. "Know what?" I looked at him, steady. "About the money." For the first time in weeks, I saw something crack in his composure. My mother stepped forward. "You don't understand." "I understand everything," I interrupted calmly. $86,000, education funds, hidden transfers, and my passport being taken to keep me from finding out. The room felt smaller after those words. He didn't deny it immediately, and that silence told me everything. My mother's voice broke slightly. "We were going to fix it." That sentence almost made me laugh. "By taking my future away?" I asked. No answer. For once, there were no explanations strong enough to hide behind. I finally felt it. Not anger, not sadness, but release. Because truth, once spoken aloud, cannot go back into silence. "I'm not here to destroy you," I said quietly. "But I'm not going to be controlled anymore." I walked out of the room before they could respond, and for the first time since everything began, no one followed me. The next days moved quickly. Legal processes started. Evidence was reviewed. Conversations happened behind closed doors that I wasn't part of, but didn't need to be anymore. Then came the moment I had been waiting for without fully realizing it. My passport was returned, no celebration. No apology that felt real. Just silence and avoidance from the people who once believed they owned my future. I held it in my hands for a long time that night, not because I was emotional, but because I understood what it represented now. Not just travel, freedom and loss, because something had ended that could never fully be repaired. The family I thought I had was not the family I discovered. The next morning, I packed my bags. No arguments stopped me. No guilt worked anymore. At the door, I paused once not to look back in hope, but to close something inside myself. Then I left, and as the road ahead opened in front of me, I finally understood something simple and powerful. They took my passport to stop me from leaving, but all they really did was prove why I had to